In a world where humans were constantly at war against the spirits, Hyoma faced a terrible fate when his brother and sister were brutally killed by a demonic spirit right in front of his eyes. He survived the attack, but with a burning hatred for the killer of his family. He vows to kill any spirit that crossed his path. This traumatic experience stays imprinted on his soul, even when he grows up to be a Senom whose job is to hunt and seal spirits. Instead of adopting peaceful methods, however, this knuckle-headed dipshit uses violence to deal with them. On the other hand, his grandfather Zohai only relies on peaceful methods to capture these spirits. He tells him that spirits are mostly confused and lonely, but Hyuma's inner rage doesn't let him see past it as he whoops the tall spirit in front of him and seals it. Finally, in an effort to change Hyuma's biased views about spirits, Zohai takes the drastic step of sending him to live with a girl named Botan from a major spirit-hunting family who is a unique human, with a bunch of Tsukumogamist living and serving her. With a sense of rejection, Hyuma packs his bags and reaches Kyoto, and on entering her home, he is immediately greeted by the stupid Thought Hori and the old fart named Kushige, who are in charge of the house while their mistress is at college. Soon, Hori and Kushige are joined by 6 other Tsukumogamist who are curious to know more about their guest. However, Hyoma completely fails the vibe check and accuses them of using Botan for their own advantage. They start fuming after hearing this, asking whether Hyuma wants to die a virgin. Hyoma, however, doesn't back off and ends up getting into a fight with one of the stronger Tsukumogamist named Nagi, while the others get ready to watch the showdown. The battle starts, and they slowly start increasing their intensity when Hyoma finally reveals his special weapons that manage to shatter Nagi's hand swords. This pisses the discount Freddy Kurdra even more as the battle starts becoming dangerous when Nagi starts trash-talking with Hyuma, calling him a spirit-hating meathead. Hori suddenly receives a message that Botan is coming home early from college, and alarmed by the escalating tension, she urges the other Tsukumogamist to intervene and stop the fight. Without a moment's hesitation, they all rush towards Hyuma and pin him to the ground just in time as moments later Botan walks in, but her eyes widen in shock as she sees Hyuma pinned to the floor in what looks like a failed wrestling attempt. She goes on to scold them for being top-tier, terrible hosts to Hyuma. She apologizes to Hyuma since her spirits kicked his shit in, but Hyuma wonders whether this soft-spoken woman who belongs in the kitchen can even handle 6 spirits on her own. That assumption evaporates pretty quickly when she casually points to the shit-brained Nagi who is hanging upside down from a tree, tied with ropes because he had the brilliant idea of picking a fight with their guest. Hyoma wonders what kind of freaky business he just got into, and since he is a grade A retard, he goes on to say that Botan should not allow the 6 Tsukumogamist to be her family because they are dangerous monsters who manipulate humans. Botan slams the table furiously and asks him to leave her home because she will not entertain anyone who calls her family monsters. Hyuma knows that if he returns, then his dumbass grandfather will throw him out and his dream of becoming the best Senom will go down the drain. So he begs Botan to let him stay, and she finally agrees, but only for 3 days. Soon Nagi, the big-headed rascal, enters the room with a smug grin plastered on his face and asks Hyuma to follow him to help in sealing a hostile spirit. Hyuma finds it strange because he has never seen a Tsukumogame hunting its own kind, but then he recalls that his grandfather told him that the Tsukumogamist who work for Botan are Senom assistants who are responsible for hunting rogue spirits. Soon, they track down the troublesome newbie and chase it through the dark alley with their eyes focused on their target. Nagi quickly swings his blade and catches the spirit off guard, while Hyuma jumps in and traps the spirit with a glowing seal. On their way home, Hyuma tells Nagi that his siblings were killed by a malevolent paper umbrella monster who is still out there. So he wants to become the next head of the Kunedo clan in order to find and kill that monster and get his revenge. The next morning, Hyuma is assigned a task alongside 2 Tsukumogamist named Kagami and Suzuri. However, he quickly finds himself frustrated because Suzuri flirts with every girl like a sappy love zombie, while Kagami is a snack-devouring beast, constantly distracted by every snack in sight. Their antics annoy Hyuma, who vents his frustration by accusing them of pretending to be human despite being spirits. Hearing this, Suzuri and Kagami ask him not to make negative assumptions about them all the time. Soon, they enter a house to conduct a special exception evaluation on its Tsukumugamist named Yaejin, who wishes to live in the human world. After a few tests, they declare that she has passed the evaluation. But as Suzuri utters the name Nagatsuki household, the woman's eyes flare with anger, and she lunges at him, hissing angrily about the family's betrayal. But Hyuma throws himself in front of her, slamming her against the wall with a fierce growl. He reaches for his sealing tool in order to put an end to her, but Kagami and Suzuri intervene, asking him to not do that and pull him back. The room pulses with tension as an angry Hyuma tries to calm himself, and Suzuri takes matters in his hands. It's soon decided that Yejin is qualified to remain in this world, and although she's a bit paranoid, she would be able to overcome her fears with a little help. Meanwhile, Hyuma reflects on the situation and realizes that for the first time he has actually dealt with its Tsukumogami without treating it as a punching bag. Earlier, Naji had told Hyuma that the spirits hate the Nagatsuki's household and accuse them of favoring a human over their own kind and taking orders to hunt them. Thus, they keep targeting them time and again. As the time is passing by, the 5 Tsukumogami are already warming up to Hyuma by taking him out on missions and working together on the jobs assigned to them, but the 6th spirit, named Yu, is a difficult nut to crack. No matter what happens, she keeps Hyuma at arm's length like he's some kind of walking virus, which makes getting through to her nearly impossible for Hyuma. Her ignorance and hatred towards Hyuma is so intense that she avoids taking him on missions and completes them without his assistance. One day, like always, she was on to seal a few spirits before Hyuma can arrive at the spot, and when he does, she openly declares her hatred for him because she feels his extreme hatred towards her fellow Tsukumogamis. Then she goes on to challenge Hyuma to a fight with her, and if he wins, then she will give her approval for him to stay at the Nagatsuki's household as long as he wants to. Immediately after saying this, she lashes out at Hyuma, but he is not in a mood to fight with her, so he keeps running to escape and she keeps following him. Yu wants Hyuma to fight back and not keep running like a coward, so she keeps provoking him to strike her like he loves to do with other spirits. But Hyuma doesn't want to fall for her tricks and lose control over himself and replies that he has been sent here to change his attitude about the spirits and monsters. But a stubborn Yu argues that she sees Hyuma as nothing more than a bloodthirsty jerk with an arrogant personality, making him hostile towards everything around him. Yu is known for her infamous hairpin abilities, which wraps the enemy in a cocoon, and she uses it on Hyuma and then kicks his torso, asking if he still doesn't wish to fight. Hyuma answers that he has been asked by his grandfather to observe them, and after doing that for a few days, he has realized that there's something very different about the Tsukumogamis of the Nagatsuki household, and it will be immature and stupid of him to fight with them until he figures out what makes them unique. After hearing this, something switches inside Yu, and she steps back and starts being a bit more approachable towards Hyuma. She asks if he will now give up and leave because he doesn't wish to fight with her, and he replies that they still have a lot of time left to complete their job, so they can use this time to get to know each other better. Suddenly, a few hostile spirits headed by their gang leader named Hanek come down the alley after sensing the presence of Yu and Hyuma. They all are eager to take revenge on the Nagatsukis, but before they can do anything, Nagi, Kagami, and Suzuri join Yu to deal with them, and when Naji asks about Hyuma, Yu casually points towards a hairpin which she accidentally threw at him, and now he is trapped in there. Naji asks Yu to release the idiot Hyuma so they can deal with the nutjob Hanek together. But before Yu can do that, Hanek asks his gang members to attack Hyuma first and beat him to pulp, but Yu takes the lead and starts running towards Hyuma, but she gets blocked by the giant spirit. On the other hand, Kagami and Suzuri are fighting the other spirits, and Naji is after Hanek, who keeps mocking him for not being able to catch him because living with a human has made him a softie. But Naji is too mature to pay attention to his silly provocations and finally goes on to ask that earlier when Hanek ordered his comrades to kill Hyuma, they followed his orders without hesitation, so it possibly means that they have the experience of killing humans and they don't hesitate in doing that. Hanek replies that they used to do that, but they have given up because humans are very too weak, and as soon as they caught them, they used to cry and beg for their lives. Suddenly, everyone hears a cracking noise and they realize that Hyuma has broken out of the hairpin cocoon himself after hearing what Hanek said. His eyes are shining bright with insane anger and bloodthirst, and as soon as Hanek's comrades attack him, he effortlessly slices them apart and charges at Hanek. He throws him across the alley, trapping him from everywhere. Hanek laughs and says that Hyuma is just like them because he loves to kill too, and Hyuma menacingly agrees, saying that he loves to kill, but his killer instincts are only reserved for Tsukumogamis like Hanek who target humans. He then goes on to kill Hanek and seal him. Meanwhile, Hori and Kushai, who are watching everything from a distance, realize that the resentment and hatred Hyuma feels towards the spirits run deep in his heart, which makes him treat all the Tsukumogami spirits in the same way. His childhood trauma has forced him to believe that these wild beasts bring nothing but harm to the land of living. But Hori is positive about the fact that she is seeing remarkable changes in Hyuma, and that might be helpful in correcting his twisted heart, but most importantly, Hyuma would be a ray of hope for them because he might be able to save Boten in the near future. After a few days, Hyuma has managed to get the approval of the members of the Nagatsuki household to continue living there. He feels a strange connection amongst all the members, which he has never experienced before, but he resolves to find out whether he really can trust the Tsukumogami spirits of this household or not. While he is lost in his thoughts, Boten hurriedly enters his room to confirm if he has got the signatures of all the members, and when he nods, she happily agrees to let him live in the household for a year. She goes on to tell them the rules that they follow, like cooking in shifts, and Hyuma is fine with it because he has cooked many times in his home, but he is just a beginner, so he asks Botan not to expect anything lavish from him. She asks him not to worry because Naji also can just make beer snacks. A little later, Hori asks them to follow her, and then she goes on to explain that they have made an arrangement with Hyuma's grandfather in exchange for allowing Hyuma to live with them. She says that every Tsukumogami in this household shares a single purpose, and for that they will evaluate him for a year and see if he can be a suitable candidate. Botan already knows what's going on in Hori's mind, and she protests, asking Hori to not embarrass her, but Yu asks her to keep quiet. Then Hori opens the door to a room with a banner that reads that this is the first step to finding a man worthy of marriage to Botan. Botan's face turns red with embarrassment, and she intervenes, saying that it's just a silly prank that they play with newcomers, so Hyuma shouldn't get the wrong idea. But they all disagree with her, saying that they are doing it for real. Hori says that they cannot stop doing this ritual because they are the spirits who came from objects that are made to seek a happy match for their owner. She explains that they all have not originated from a single object, but from a single batch of gifts that are offered to the bride upon marriage, so naturally they are driven to achieve this purpose. So the approval for Hyuma to live with them also means that he has passed their first evaluation, and his grandfather has also agreed to this. Hori asks Hyuma if he will consider this a trial marriage, and everyone starts putting pressure on him. Hyuma thinks for a while and calmly answers that even if they have got his grandfather's permission, he still needs time to think about this because a sudden request to join the household is not like eating a piece of cake. But at the same time, he can't disrespect his grandfather by rejecting the offer, so without saying anything, he just goes to Botan and seeks her permission to go out and promises to come back later. After he goes out, everyone is a bit surprised and freaked out because Hyuma's reaction was a bit uptight and calm, which is very unlike him. On the other hand, Botan is ready to bite their head off and accuses them of making things awkward between her and Hyuma, and it will be difficult living with him like this for 1 year. On the other hand, Hyuma calls his grandfather, threatening to reveal the reason behind him agreeing to the marriage proposal by the Nagatsuki household's spirits. He says that he doesn't wish to create a tense relationship that will cause harm to his mental health. Hearing this, Zhu replies that he is worried about him because he has turned 21, but like an anti-romantic hasn't shown the slightest interest in marriage and romance. So this is a perfect time to arrange for his marriage, considering Botan has grown into a lovely young woman. Hyuma cannot go on listening to his grandfather's cringe words, otherwise his ears will bleed, so he just hangs up on him. He goes to Kagami and Suzuri and asks about Hori's whereabouts because he wants to talk to her about an urgent matter. They both reply that she's gone on a business trip with Kushij, while Naji and Yu are out on a mission to capture more hostile spirits who were part of Haneke's gang. A furious Hyuma asks why he wasn't told to join because he was waiting for a chance to see all those hostile spirits again. Suddenly, Botan calls Hyuma, and Kagami drags Suzuru with her because they want to give them some privacy to talk to each other. Botan asks Hyuma to not worry about the strange proposal that her spirit family proposed, and Hyuma lies that he is not worried about that at all, and hearing this, she feels a bit sad, but she soon forces herself to smile and then leaves for shopping. Suddenly, Kagami and Suzuri reappear and scold him for being insensitive to a girl by turning her down with total indifference, accusing him of being a cruel jerk for doing that. Suzuri warns that he is a very calm guy, but when it comes to someone playing with the feelings of his mistress, he can go absolutely feral in anger. Meanwhile, Kagami is crying her eyes out after seeing that Hyuma rejected Botan right in front of her eyes. She screams that Hyuma sucks at expressing his feelings and he was so mean to Botan. Soon, the dumbhead Hyuma realizes that he really has hurt Botan by being an absolute jerk and misunderstanding everything. On the other hand, Botan is on her way to shopping and she keeps thinking about what Hyuma said, and no matter how much she tries to dismiss it, it keeps bothering her. Suddenly, a gust of wind sweeps past her and takes the shape of a huge Tsukumogami named Hinarashi, who wants to attack her. Botan is in trouble because neither can she defend herself nor can she call her Tsukumogami family. Meanwhile, Naji and Yu are busy capturing the remaining hostile spirits when one of them laughs and informs them that their boss must have found Botan by now and their powerless mistress is too weak to defend herself. Hearing this, Naji and Yu quickly run to save Botan. But Botan is already being cornered by that damn beast and she has nowhere to escape. She tries to run to save herself, but he blocks her path and mocks her for being such a weakling. He informs her that there is an unwritten law among the Tsukumogamis who live in Kyoto that they'll not make use of Nagatsuki Botan, but he doesn't care about it, because his brother was sealed by one of the Tsukumogamis from the Nagatsuki household, and all he wants is to take revenge. Saying this, he lashes towards Botan, but soon Hyuma comes in between and slashes his arm away. They both get busy in a brutal fight while Yu and Nagi reach the spot and threaten to teach the beast a lesson for trying to harm their precious mistress. They both attack the spirit together and capture it, and Yu anxiously runs towards Boten to check if she is doing alright, and Nagi thanks Hyouma for saving Boten's life, and then drags Yu away to give Boten and Hume some time alone. As soon as they leave, Boten thanks Hyouma, and he replies that he merely did the duty of a seinen. He tells her that Kagami asked him to follow her, and he is truly sorry for being a jerk by hurting her feelings and misunderstanding her intentions. He confesses that he did not mean to say that he doesn't like her. After saying this, he starts stuttering because it's the first time he has said something like this, and it kinda sounds strange to him. The next morning, Suzuri wakes up to a noisy commotion, and it seems like the mansion has turned into a zoo full of animals. He peeks out and sees Naji chasing after Hyouma, who is on his way to put a talisman in front of the mansion to protect Boten from any Tsukumogami who is lurking around to attack her again. Naji yells that the talisman's shit is strong enough to give shivers to humans too. So he shouldn't go around doing dumb stuff, and on top of that, Kushik has already put a barrier around the mansion before going on the business trip. On the other hand, it turns out that Kushish, Hori, and Hyouma's grandfather are invited by a powerful spirit named Kai. As soon as they reach the place, they are enveloped by a wall, announcing the arrival of the menacing spirit who traps them from all sides, and they are attacked by a sword, but Jui blocks it and asks Kai to show his face and stop being a brat. Soon, the wall disappears and Kai appears before them, perched on a couch with a young girl sitting next to him. It is revealed that Kai is a very old spirit who appeared first in the Edo period, and he is one of the 3 great Tsukumogamis of Kyoto, also nicknamed the Suit of Armor. According to Seinom documents, he was at first an exception to Seinoms, and they tried to avoid him, but soon they started feeling threatened by his powers, so they sealed him behind a barrier created by the shrine-fenced Tsukumogami called Itsuki, who is sitting next to him. Soon, Kai breaks the silence and says that he has learnt about Hyouma moving into the Nagatsuki household, and this is an interesting development for him. Sugi asks Itsuki to open a bottle of wine and they'll have a talk. But a nervous Jove starts making an excuse about the hotel reservation he has already made, and Kai, whose ego doesn't allow him to accept disapproval, furiously threatens him to cancel all the reservations and spend a few days with him. But Hyouma knows if Kai chooses someone to spend time with him, then they could be held captive for an extended period of time. In a dangerous tone, he asks them to tell him everything in great detail. Not having any other option, Joe tells him that he has sent Hyouma to Nagatsuki for reformation of his attitude against spirits. And this is an interesting news for Kai, who apparently loves gossip and stories. But he asks them to be cautious because according to the unwritten rule of the Tsukumogamis, no one can use Boten. And that's because that girl has a potential that could be a boon for either human or Tsukumogami. Thus, no one is allowed to take her side, and Zhao's decision of sending Hyouma to Boten might be interpreted by other Tsukumogamis as a trick to woo her on their side. On the other hand, Hyouma is on his way to remove the talismans he has put around in the neighborhood, but the earlier attack of Tsukumogami on Boten is still bugging him. He wonders why it's Tsukumogami who has a grudge against the Nagatsuki household's Tsukumogamis will try to take Boten as a hostage despite knowing that they would have to deal with the consequences, or there might be something about Boten herself that needs protection. But he dismisses his thoughts and starts removing the talismans again. Suddenly, his eyes widen in surprise when he notices that one of the talismans is burnt in half, which means the talisman activated, but someone has managed to cross it. Soon he sees 2 spirits behind him, who look very dangerous, and with his experience he can make out that they are stronger than the rest of the Tsukumogamis he has dealt with. One of them says that they haven't seen that sort of talisman around here before, and seeing it, they could figure out that it is stuck by a newcomer named Hyouma, and then he dangerously says that he wishes to talk to him. Hyouma tries to think of a plan as quickly as possible because he can make out that the spirits have been around the mansion for quite some time, and the fact they know about him coming to the household means they know a lot about Boten as well, and they are also the allies of the Tsukumogamis who hold a grudge against the Nagatsuki household's Tsukumogamis. So he takes a deep breath and confidently realizes that he is from the government office and has been assigned the duty of finding who has put the talisman barriers. And if they know anything about the Hyouma guy, they can let him know. But they both are taken aback and reply that they know nothing much, so Hyouma bids them goodbye and walks away. But suddenly, the whitehead spirit blocks him and says that he knows that he is Hyouma. But Hyouma has already stuck a talisman on his partner when he tries to attack the whitehead. But he turns out to be cleverer than he expected. Soon his partner, Yuchiki, also gets up and they both hit Hyouma and he starts bleeding from his head. They both take him to an abandoned alley and Yuchiki beats him black and blue to get out information from him. But Hyouma scoffs and says that they are wasting their time and energy on him because he also doesn't know much about the Nagatsuki household's Tsukumogamis. But the whitehead spirit denies and says that they want information about him and his motives of entering the Nagatsuki household, and does he wants the power of Nagatsuki Boten because she is a Yoramashi. But Hyoma can't make sense of anything, and all these words sound foreign to him. Soon Whitehead threatens that a war will break out soon because the Tsukumigamis of Nagatsuki household have broken the unwritten rule of not using Boten in any way by selling her off to the Kumamoto family, the one Hyoma belongs to. Hearing this, Hyoma kicks Whiteheads in his gut and declares that he has nothing to do with Tsukumigamis, but he will not let them live since they have already set their dirty eyes on Boten, who is an ordinary human, and he is duty-bound to seal them. The Whitehead looks closely at Hyoma and realizes that he really doesn't know anything about Boten and her hidden powers. Soon they are interrupted by an angry Yu who declares that Hyoma has only joined them to learn to be the next suitable head of the Kumamoto family, and he is currently your special guest, and harming a guest is unacceptable in the Nagatsuki household. As surprised, Hyoma asks Yu how she found him, and she replies that it was because she started following the pieces of talisman that Hyoma had left behind. Then she asks Whitehead to leave and stops Hyoma from sealing him because that will automatically escalate the problem and cause more harm than good, and Hyoma had to grudgingly let go of them. She tells him that the two spirits are named Aoji and Uchiki, and though they have used unfair means to get information out of him, their primary duties are internal investigations and intelligence gathering, but she wonders who hired them to do this. And Aoji replies that there is someone watching them closely, so they should watch their backs, and casually walks away like he hasn't just beaten the soul out of Hyoma. Yu notices that Hyoma is pouting in anger because he wanted to seal those two troublemakers so bad, so she pricks him with her hairpin and asks him to calm down, saying that she will bring back the rest of the talismans so he should go back to the mansion and get himself treated. While on his way back, Hyoma keeps thinking about Aoji's words about Boten and resolves to find more about her. The next morning, Hori returns home after a painfully tiring encounter with Kai, and while she is still on the doorstep being greeted by Kagami, who is briefing her about everything that happened, they both hear Hori almost throwing himself on Boten while asking her to go out with him because he wishes to know more about her, but Hori and Kagami are taken aback when Boten pushes him with both her palms, sending him flying across the corridor, saying that she has a report to submit at college by 4 p.m. and rushes out, leaving Hori painfully gripping his stomach, lying on the floor. After some time, Hyoma tells Hori and Kagami about the incident with Agi, who said that Boten is a Yoramashi, and it's high time he needs to know the meaning of the term. When Hori and Kagami learn that Hyoma wanted to go out with Boten to know more about her, mixed feelings start taking over them, and they wonder if they should tell him about Boten's secret. Soon, Hori sits straight and says that Hyoma wants to know about Boten because he genuinely wants to protect her, and moreover, they are supposed to tell him the secret sooner or later, so it's better to tell him now. She asks Hyoma to meet her outside, in front of the convenience store, and she will catch up with him there after dressing up a bit, and they will go on a date together. Soon Hori meets him at the convenience store pretending to be his girlfriend, making him embarrassed to his core. But soon they secretly starts following Boten, and when Hyoma asks why are they acting as rats, she answers that the first step to get to know about Boten is to understand what all surrounds her, because inside the mansion she is safe, considering the mansion is surrounded by a barrier which keeps most of the unwanted spirits away from her. But outside it's completely different because she is exposed to a lot of bad energy. When Hyoma gathers his Sinum senses, he realizes that many spirits have their eyes on Boten and they are surrounding her from all directions, and soon he tries to call her name, but Hori shuts him up, saying that the spirits are just watching with mass presence and they will not harm her. And she is already aware of the presence around her. It's always been like that since the day she was born, and she has started accepting it, making it a scenery of her everyday life. After some time, Hori explains that the Tsukumigamis are born when a Marebido possess an object to serve its vessel, and a Marebido refers to a visiting god who brings blessings from a foreign land, and in a way that Tsukumigamis have divine power that is giving life and new form to inanimate objects. But the Marebidos can bring so much power to even the most disposable things, but if it possesses a human, the power can become multifold. But if that human will become a source of blessing for the living world or otherwise is still left to be discovered. So in other words, Yorameshi refers to a human who is possessed by a god, and just like that, Boten carries within her a Marebido, just like Tsukumigamis, but it hasn't awakened yet. Hori also explains that they need to turn her still uncertain blessings to their own advantage. So there is a rule that no one will make use of Nagatsuki Boten, and everyone is waiting for the right time, watching her from a distance. Hyoma, after listening carefully to every detail that Hori told, suddenly turns towards her, asking what is the role of the Nagatsuki Tsukumigamis and how he will be sure that they won't harm her. So Hori glares at him and warns him not to ask this ridiculous question again, because they have been watching Boten ever since she was born, and when she turned 3, the law was made and she wasn't allowed to leave the mansion, but when finally she was allowed to leave the house, the children, who naturally possess strong sixth sense, used to avoid her, and their parents too didn't let them approach her. So the only people who stayed close to her were the Tsukumigamis of the Nagatsuki household who kept a watch on her as parents. It was after years that she was able to go out without miming the eyes watching her, and at all steps of her life, they have always kept a watch on her and they don't have any ulterior motives towards her. Then she playfully teases Hyoma that if he feels that Boten is too big a trouble to handle, then he can leave for his Kunado house. Hyoma thinks for a moment and seriously replies that this thought never crossed his mind, and even if he returns, he will be exiled from the Sainoms and he promises to protect her. Soon Hori calls Kagami, who was listening to everything while staying hidden. And they all start teasing poor Hyoma again, saying that he is Boten's future husband because he has resolved to protect her. Suddenly, Boten calls them out asking why Hori is dressed like she's out on a date, and they all nervously reply that they are just out here for a get-together, and Hori leads her away towards a dumpling shop while Hyoma and Kagami are left alone. Hyoma asks if Boten has any close relatives who can offer to help her, and Kagami sadly replies that they don't know anything about her parents because when they found her, she was being taken care of by her grandfather. But after his death, there was no one to take care of her, and she has gone through a lot, and she still carries deep scars on her heart. While returning home in the evening, Boten comes to know that Hori has told Hyoma everything about her past, and she is embarrassed because she assumes that Hyoma will think that she is a delusional girl who gets visited by ghosts, but Hori assures her that he is really impressed by her, because despite the hardships, she keeps on going vibrantly. Boten is taken aback, but she is glad Hyoma doesn't find her strange, and this is the first time she has received this kind of reaction, and soon Kagami and Hori hug her, saying that they are happy for her. Seeing them, Hyoma gets flashbacks of his childhood days with his siblings, and he realizes that they indeed are a beautiful family. Soon winter sets in, and the weather turns cold, and Boten hands a hot pack to Hyoma, bids Kagami goodbye, and rushes off to college. Kagami goes on to shovel the snow when the troublesome Aoji comes knocking on their doors again. So Suzuri keeps him company, while Kagami desperately stops herself from following her evil instincts and shoving the hot tea down Aoji's throat. After Kagami leaves, Aoji says that he has come here to carry out a small task, and after that, you will leave the house immediately. Suzuri replies that Kagami is angry because he had beaten Hyoma the other day, and then proceeds to ask what his superiors think of the report he made on Hyoma. Aoji replies that a lot of them still have their doubts about the report, but he won't give away the details to Suzuri until he gives him equally important information, but Suzuri smartly threatens him to take his news if he wishes to keep the matter low. Aoji replies that many readers who read his report titled Kunado staying with the Nagatsukas for training purposes and the law hasn't been broken are convinced, and they will probably stay quiet, except the 3 clients who remained a little skeptical. And they are the group of Tsukumigamis Suzuri sealed that included Hikaki and known as Sogenbi, one of the 3 great Tsukumigami of Kyoto called the Bureau of Traditional Music, and the Katamori faction, which is a Seinom representative currently protecting Kyoto. All the 3 will not easily back off because they are particularly interested in Boten, who possesses divine powers, especially when Hyoma Kunado, another powerful human, is close to her. It makes things even more interesting. The 3 factions will come after them, but he is not sure who will be attacked first, Hyoma, Boten, or everyone in the Nagatsuki household. Suzuri asks who he thinks will attack first among the 3, and Aoji reluctantly replies that might be the group of 3 that Nagatsuki household has the most dealings with, the protectors of Kyoto named the Katamori, and then he leaves after some time. Naji and Kagami appreciate Suzuri for being able to extract important information from the clever Aoji, all thanks to Suzuri's smooth talk abilities, which none of them possess. But Kagami finds it strange that the Bureau of Music is also involved in Hyoma and Boten, even though Kai was happy to just wait from a distance. On the other hand, Aoji is outside the mansion kicking a pile of ice out of frustration because even though he's allowed to sell information to whoever he wishes to, but he feels unease creeping up on him after revealing the information to Suzuri. But what makes him more uneasy is the encounter he had the previous night with the spirit of the girl holding a traditional umbrella. She asked Aoji about Hyoma, but he declined giving information without getting to know about her identity, and as soon as he asked who she was, the spirit disappeared, and this still bothers Aoji. He knows that life for Hyoma is going to be tougher each passing day, especially since weirdos keep appearing from here and there to get information on him. Meanwhile, Hyoma is getting ready to meet the old man named Katamori Teiju, who is the representative of Seinom in Kyoto, and Hyoma wishes to receive official permission to start working in Kyoto to seal spirits. When Nanji asks whether he has made him before, he says he has, but has heard about him from his grandfather, who told him that Katamori is a slight old man also nicknamed as Bird of Prey. After some time, Hyoma reaches the promised spot and meets Katamori, who then takes him to their residence where they have captured a spirit called Call Bell. The spirit is capable of attracting other Tsukumigamis nearby by his voice, but they haven't sealed it yet because they think his powers might be useful and he does good work for them. Then Katamori asks him to sit down and watch how they work here, and saying this, he sits at the doorstep and Hyoma keeps standing close to him. Soon a spirit appears from the far away, and Katamori explains that he and his men fight in an orthodox way by using the power of talismans to hold down the target, and while they are frozen, they drive sealing power into it. Soon the spirit charges towards Katamori's men, but as soon as he touches the talismans, he is thrown far away and the men quickly run towards him to seal him. After seeing everything in great detail, Hyoma realizes that Kyoto is a battleground where Tsukumogamis often cause a lot of damage, therefore one needs special skills to keep them in control. Soon Katamori tells him that all these spirits are not much work for them, but considering there are a lot of them coming in Kyoto these days, they lack manpower, so if Hyoma wishes to join them while he is in the city, he will officially allow him to continue being a Seino, but he needs to report to him time and again and tell him about the Nagatsuki household, because when Ogi informed him about Hyoma living with the Nagatsukis, he was taken by huge surprise and he thought that the Kunathos were being clever and trying to take Boten's powers to their advantage, and then he asks if Hyoma really is just staying with them to observe. Instead of answering, Hyoma asks Katamori of his impression of Nagatsukis, and he replies that it's just like monsters living side by side in one happy Dan monster family. He wonders what will unfold when the Moribito inside Boten will finally awaken, and according to many theories, it's assumed that she will become the master of Tsukumogamis, so it will be better if they can keep her under their control, considering she is like a ticking time bomb living with them and everyone will want to get rid of her. But the reason they can't do it is because she has always got a wall of her Tsukumogami family protection around her all the time, and moreover, her household is not under their jurisdiction, but is under Hyoma's grandfather Zuhai's. So the only option left is to ask Hyoma for information, because he has been able to go inside their safe space, and on top of that he is a Konato. He asks if Hyoma will seal the Nagatsuki Tsukumogamis and do away with Boten for them. And the oldie keeps forcing Hyoma to answer in yes, but as uptight he is, Hyoma declines and says that he will not do that because he doesn't believe that Boten is a monster, and as he considers himself the protector of humans, it would be unacceptable for him to do away with one of them. On top of that, he has developed a fondness for that family. The oldie realized that he can't verbally force Hyoma to accept his offer, so he asked his hooligans to take care of him by force, and they throw a couple of talismans blocking him from all sides, and oldie threatens him to accept his offer or else he will use him as a vessel to get rid of the Nagatsukis, but Hyoma bravely declines the offer again. The hooligans activate the talismans, causing a huge explosion around Hyoma, enveloping him dust, and the other hooligan runs to capture him, but he is met with Hyoma's powerful kicks, sending him flying a few feet across the ground, and the other exclaims in surprise how Hyoma managed to survive that deadly attack. Hyoma replies that he has no intention of changing his mind, and if they attempt to control him by force, then he will fight back. Now it's clear to Katamori that Hyoma is more than just a little rich boy, especially when he openly challenges the most powerful group of Seinoms without fear. The oldie also realizes that Hyoma has a fair share of battleground experience because he had secretly carried a bunch of talismans to cancel out the effect of the explosion talismans. That means he came well prepared, but he is not going to back down easily, so he calls all the Tsukumogamis they have captured to deal with Hyoma. Soon Hyoma is surrounded by a group of troublemaker Tsukumogamis who have been controlled by talismans to act on Katamori's orders. Katamori orders them to attack Hyoma and asks his men to use that to the advantage and pin Hyoma down and control him with a talisman too, so they can use his powers later, but Hyoma is no child to all these plannings and soon a violent fight begins, but as soon as Hyoma takes out his Chibikiwa or door pole, the ritual tool of the House of Kunato handed down directly from Sanakomi that is used to kill Tsukumogamis, the oldie realizes that Hyoma will not hesitate in killing the Tsukumogamis, especially when he is still haunted by the memories of his dead siblings, killed by a Tsukumogami. That means he is more than ready for everything that will come before him. Everyone knows that Hyoma had fought his first battle and was just 12 because he had looked up information on Tsukumogami spirits, which led him to risk his life fighting the beastly spirit called the Onagawara of Ao, a Tsukumogami who was as powerful as the spirits of the Nagatsuki family, but Hyoma destroyed him when he was 18 and made out of that brutal and desperate battle, which means Hyoma is damn strong. Hyoma is still engaged in the fights with spirits let loose by the oldie, and after defeating them all, he asks the oldie to send more if he has any. He and his man can make out that after fighting for so long with big and desperate moves is tiring Hyoma pretty fast, and one of them suggested using the control talisman on him right now, but the oldie asked them to not do that, and they should play with Hyoma a bit longer. Suddenly another spirit comes flying towards Hyoma, and when he looks closely, it turns out to be Yeijin, the spirit he and Suzuri investigated to be allowed to live with humans, but now she's in the control of Katamori and his clan. Hyoma tries to talk to her and help her come out of the talisman trance, but Yejin seems to be bloodthirsty at the moment as she lunges on Hyoma and attacks him. But no matter how hard he tries, his sympathy for her doesn't let him use his ritual tool on her. So he keeps dodging her attacks as much as he can, but he keeps getting injured. The clever Katamori can make out that Hyoma is not as sharp as before, and that's because the brat has developed sympathies for the Tsukumogamis after staying with the Nagastsuki household. Even though he's a brutal fighter with a blade of hatred for these spirits and had no trace of mercy for them. But now something has changed in him because once he sees a familiar face of a spirit, he controls himself from killing it. The oldie mentally mocks Zohai for assuming that sending Hyoma to understand Tsukumogamis to Nagatsuki would help him grow, but that plan will soon backfire on him because that has made him fragile. He warns Hyoma that if he loses to Yejin, then he will take him into custody, and even if he destroys Yejin, he will still hit him with a control talisman after he is left in emotional turmoil of killing someone he had tender feelings for. Soon, Yejin hits him across the face, leaving him bleeding, but he still tries to calm her down, saying that she has had more than her share of misfortune, and then takes everyone by surprise as he slashes her face with the ritual weapon, and Katamori laughs and smartly throws a couple of controlled talismans towards Hyoma, but he catches hold of them and charges towards the oldie, finally putting the ritual weapon close to his neck, threatening to kill him. The scared old man wonders how Hyoma is still so calm after killing Yejin, but he looks towards her. He sees that Hyoma had not used his ritual tool to kill her, but used it to cut her blindfold and control talismans, and soon Yejin comes back to her senses. Katamori asks why Hyoma chose the toughest way to solve the problem. So Hyoma answers that he used his instinct, which told him to follow his heart, so he followed his instinct. Katamori's daughter, Tsubaki, who was looking at everything for a long time, bursts into laughter, and she is starting to admire Hyoma for his morals, and she is reminded of what Hyoma's elder brother told her when they visited her a long time back while she was still young. He told her that his younger brother, Hyoma, follows what his heart says and is very true to his instincts, just halfway between foolish and courageous, and now she can see that he really spoke the truth about Hyoma. So she butts in and asks his father to stop with his axe, or else she will be forced to take Hyoma's side and fight against her own father and activate her talisman axe with the power of formation. It seems that Katamori got his brain cells back, and he laughs, saying that he has overdone a lot by forcing Hyoma to fight against so many spirits, but he has passed his evaluation by flying colors. He adds that he would have given permission to operate in Kyoto as Seino, but he wished to test him a bit, and while doing that he admits that he got a little too mean towards Boten and the Nagatsuki household. But now he is able to see the whole picture. He admits that Hyoma is a great fighter who has got strength and resolve, and he will definitely be able to deal with spirits of the town. He allows Hyoma to take custody of Yejin, and from now on she can work under Kunato family's jurisdiction. And before leaving, he tells Hyoma that he is very interesting and he hopes to see him more often, and Tsubaki flirtatiously hands over a piece of paper with her phone number, saying that they should talk, and she has a lot to tell him about his elder brother Hayato and sister Kusui. Soon, a scared Yejin breaks his line of thoughts and asks what is happening and what is she supposed to do, and Hyoma says that he will explain everything on the way and asks her to follow him. Soon they both are standing on the doorstep of Nagatsuki household, and they can hear that everyone is tending to Kushage, who is sick because he was forced to spend a long time with the clingy spirit Kai, who exhausted him off with drinks and endless talks. Yejin is cared of the Nagatsuki household because he still considers them as monsters who catch their own people and seal them, but Hyoma says that she should not keep assuming that because that's a lie, and moreover, she just has to spend one night here, and the next day his grandfather will send someone to take her back to Kunato's. Saying this, he enters the mansion, and seeing his tattered, torn clothes, Kagemi immediately tells Boten, who comes running with a pair of clothes, but when she sees him in a funny state, she cannot control her laughter and points out that Hyoma always comes back home beaten, like he is a bratty child who needs to be looked after. Hearing this, Hyoma smiles a little and says that after seeing her, his mind is at peace now, and a blush creeps on Boten's face. He introduces her to Yejin and asks for her permission to let her stay for night, and Boten agrees. At night, when everyone is together, Hume desperately explains to a rather pouty Boten, who is a bit put off, that Hyoma brought a woman home, that he merely took pity on an unfortunate woman, and Boten scoffs, saying that he is such a martyr. Later, they organize a welcome party for Yejin. The next morning, Boten goes to Hori and says that yesterday's night helped her clear her mind a bit, and she is done with her report. Hori tells her that everyone has gone shopping because Suzuri wanted to buy new clothes for himself, and she stayed back to look after a sick Kushage. Soon Hyoma comes to with Yejin and informs Boten that he is heading out to see off Yejin, and there's a place she wants to visit before she leaves, so they are leaving a bit early. Hori asks Boten to accompany them, teasingly pointing out that Hyoma is heading out alone with a beautiful girl and can lead to something else. Hyoma also asked Botan to accompany him so there are no doubts about his relationship with Yejin, and Yejin also agrees, saying that she will really appreciate Botan in accompanying them because she is scared of Hyoma's scary attitude, and Botan agrees. Soon the trio head out together, and Yejin tells them that the place she wishes to visit is the one where she spent a great deal of time as a tool with its master, so she wishes to see it once before she leaves for Kunedo household. It's more like her vessel's memory from the past with which she has strong attachments, but she can't clearly recall the location or the face of her master. After listening to this, Hyoma says that it's a difficult matter since they rarely hear of a Tsukumogami who was so deeply influenced by its vessel. Botan asks Yejin if visiting that place will trigger memories within her, but she replies that it's not really possible because her time as a mourner wheel was centuries ago, and there's no way the traces of that time are still left. They reach an abandoned hut, and Yagain tells that before she was evaluated as an exception, she used to come here secretly to see if she can still get her memories back, but she never learned anything, but she desperately wishes to know the source of her emotions and towards whom they are dedicated. The hut has nothing left to trace back Yejin's memories, so she just makes a silent prayer for her master, saying that because of him, she truly loves the worth of living and she is grateful to him. Yejin says that she is done with her job and now she should leave since she doesn't want to steal any more time on the couple, leaving Botan and Hyoma flabbergasted. And they both hurriedly decline. They are not engaged, and Botan says that the engagement story is Hori's and everyone else's idea, and they have nothing to do with it. Hyoma quickly adds that he and Botan do not have any such relationship as of yet. Soon they reach the station, and Hyoma asks the man from Kunedo to take good care of Yejin, but before leaving, Yejin tells him that Botan is an extraordinary human, and being a Tsukumogami herself, she can feel a warmth coming out of her soul, and she feels a deep emotion towards her, just like she felt towards her mazer. Finally, she asks Hyoma to take care of her, and he agrees, saying that he will never fail to do that because he is a Senom. In the evening, when Botan and Hyoma are returning home, she thanks him for letting her accompany him because this meeting with Yejin has been very educational for her since she only knows about the Tsukumogamis living in her home, but while interacting with Yejin, she has come to understand that these spirits are very different from each other, with diverse emotions and life stories, and Hyoma agrees with her, saying that it has been a meaningful experience for him too because earlier he just sealed the spirits without feeling the need to hear them out. After hearing this, Botan gathers her courage and asks why he is so hard on Tsukumogami, and Hyoma wonders why Hori didn't tell Botan about it despite knowing his past from his grandfather. So he tells her that his brother and sister were killed by a Tsukumogami when he was just 12, and his twin siblings were 18 years old who were already working as Senom successors to the Kunedo family. His sister's name was Kusui, and she was like a mother to him, and his brother was Hayato, a very intelligent boy, and he was his teacher of combat techniques. Their killer was a Tsukumogami who was wandering on the stress whom they had gone to save, and the sight of that evil spirit laughing as it stabbed his siblings on its skewers is something he can never forget, and that gives birth to his hatred towards the Tsukumogami spirits. Botan feels sad that she asked him a very emotional question abruptly, but Hyoma doesn't mind telling her this because he always wanted to tell her the truth. He says that before coming to the Nagatsuki household, his grandfather had advised him to look at the nature of the spirits first, and now he has come to understand that there are many kinds of Tsukumogamis, and understanding their true nature will only allow him to move forward towards his goal. He has also come to believe that the spirits of the Nagatsuki family are not like that paper umbrella spirit who killed his siblings. Botan tries to encourage him, saying that he can really change himself, especially since he has already changed so much after living with them. He is a lot more gentle with her family and with Yejin too, and she is sure that he can overcome his fear and trauma just like she did. Even though she still can feel the eyes of Tsukumogamis following her everywhere, she doesn't seem to care much. Soon, Hyoma can feel 4 pair of eyes on them, and as expected, Nagi, Yu, Suguri, and Kagami are watching them very closely, and as usual, Yu disapproves, saying that Botan is too young to hang out with the man alone. On the other hand, Botan asks Hyoma to call her by her first name Botan because all the people close to her call her by this. The next morning, Hyoma and Yu have to go out for a job, and Botan requests him not to get hurt because she is tired of him coming home covered with cuts and bruises, and Hyoma nervously answers in yes, but he is still not very confident in calling her with her initial name, but Botan forces him to call her by Botan. But as soon as Yu hears Hyoma calling and addressing Botan with her first name, she gets extremely angry, but Botan assures her that it's okay because he doesn't use honorifics with anybody else's name, so Yu reluctantly gives in to her wish, and then they both leave. Botan hopes that they go along well with each other and asks Nagi to join them to keep an eye, but he says that they'll be fine, and moreover, he's on house duty today. Yu and Hyoma are on their way to Kabamori, who is called for Hyoma and a member of the Nagatsuki household, which obviously means that the opponent must be impressively powerful, and Yu informs him that they will be dealing with a Tsukumogami group named Sojinbi, which is one of the largest factions in Kyoto, and their vessels are infamous to be vessels of execution, torture, and other instruments of human suffering. 4 years ago, Seinom of Kyoto went to war with them in order to take them down and eliminate them, and this recent incident must surely be the work of the 3 surviving leaders who are known to be very hostile. After hearing the details, Hyoma approves that they really must be dangerous creatures, and considering this, Yu didn't bring Nagi and others along with her. Yu agrees and says that earlier they all were part of the battle with Sogenbi and played important roles in bringing them down, and if the 3 hostile Sogenbi leaders are in the mood of revenge, then it might prove to be dangerous for Boten, for they might take her as the hostage, and to prevent that, she has left everyone with Boten to guard her. She teases Hyoma by asking if he is acting like a scaredy cat without the others, and he quickly disapproves, saying that he is more than excited to face the Tsukumogamis that harm humans, and he is relieved that this time no one will ask him to hold back from killing and dealing with them. Soon they reach the chosen meeting spot, and out of nowhere Katamori's daughter, Tsubaki, jumps on him and exclaims that today they will be working together, and then she turns serious, asking why Hyoma didn't text her, and he tries to change the topic by saying that he had his reasons. Soon his eyes land on Yu, who is looking at him with a gaze of disgust, saying that Hyoma has got a woman in every town, and she will let Boten know about this, and sensing that he might land into trouble with Boten, he yells and says that he doesn't. It turns out that Yu and Tsubaki already know each other, and Yu tells Hyoma that Tsubaki is running to be the next Kyoto Seinom representative after his father, and it will be in Konado's favor if Hyoma stays on good terms with Tsubaki. Soon Yu inquires about other Seinoms who will be accompanying them for the mission, and she hears Aji, who is sitting on the bench, saying that they won't be joined by any other Seinoms, so they have to complete this mission on their own, but he and his partner will guide them to the spot where they might find their targets. Hyoma doesn't have good memories with Agi, so he speaks with distaste, asking the reason for this arrangement, to which he replies that it's because Katamori and other are trying to cover the town with protective talismans, and in the meantime they will work on the mission. Agi takes the 4 to the hideout of Sojinbis, but they no longer live here. However, this place might help them to find clues on them, and unexpectedly, Hyoma praises Agi for finding out the hideout single-handedly. Yu knows that in the past, Katamori had asked Aji and his partner Uchiki to keep a track of the 3 leaders, so when the time comes, they can capture them, but he also forged an agreement with them, saying that they will let them roam free, but they should not attack them. But she still can't understand why the 3 leaders decided to break this unspoken arrangement after so many years, but anyhow, she assumes that they must have thought that Nagatsukis have broken the arrangement first by letting Hyoma stay in the household. Soon, Aoji announces that they will not stay here longer than they have to and asks Uchiki to follow him, but suddenly Hyoma screams his name, and before he can react, a spirit falls from the sky and attacks him, and Hyoma is sure that the 3 Sojinbis are in their hideout, and in the count of 3, they appear before him, and one of them, who is called Hikikri, says that last night they killed a brave Seinom who was tortured to death, but he didn't reveal his master's location. So they will torture Hyoma and his comrades and see how much they can endure, and hearing this, Hyoma is filled with insane anger. Soon, another spirit named Shimodi appears from the hut, and Ogi points out that they are surrounded from all 3 sides. Hyoma asks them the reason for hurting humans and if they attack the Seinom for the purpose of revenge, and Hikikri replies that they do it to make humans suffer because they are born out of instruments of punishment, and when they attacked the Seinom last night, they were merely trying to make him a target and nothing more. Hearing this, Hyoma furiously screams, saying that he will break them all to pieces for hurting humans, and Yu agrees to him because the Sogenbis hold a grudge against the Nagatsuki household too. Soon, Hyoma takes out his ritual tool and calls the Sogenbis to fight with him, and everyone is waiting holding their breaths for Hyoma to show his heroism. Soon, one of them attacks Sabuki with fire, but she uses her talismans to create a protective armor around her. Meanwhile, Hikikri declares that he will deal with Hyoma on his own because he is the human who broke the law by approaching Boten. Soon he unleashes his chainsaw, and Hyoma asks Yu to strike him quickly, and she arrogantly warns him to stop ordering her around. On the other hand, Aji tries to escape by trying to make the 3rd Sogenbi believe that they don't have any intention of harming them. But as soon as she calls them the puppets of Katamori, Agi is filled with rage and uses his fan technique to break her armor. Meanwhile, Yu and Hyoma are fighting with Hikikri, but nothing seems to work on him because he has the power of recovering himself after every attack that Hyoma and Yu inflict on him, and soon he sends them both flying in different directions with his chainsaw weapons. Hikikri says that Yu's hairpins are useless against him because their bodies are already in assumed forms, and that helps them to transform themselves wherever they are struck, and it's not difficult to avoid them, and asks Yu to stay quiet and let him fight with Hyoma alone. Hikiri knows that the Chibikiwa weapon, or the ritual tool that Hyoma has, is actually passed down from generations, and they are made of the handles of literal doors to the land of death, and if anyone comes in contact with the Chibikiwa, they actually step through that door, and that causes them to vanish from the living world. So in conclusion, Hyoma's weapons are extremely dangerous. But their effect depends a lot on who uses them, and since Hyoma is badly injured right now, his mobility is halved, so it will be easy to defeat him by tearing him to pieces with his chainsaw. Soon he unleashes all of his chainsaws and traps Hyoma in them, asking him to beg for help, but when he doesn't, Hikiri looks in the other direction and sees that Sabuki has already killed one of his teammates, and she says that he can't afford to lose more teammates, and while he is distracted, Hyoma uses his ritual tool and cuts all of his chainsaws at once. Soon Aoji also manages to kill another Sogenbi. Seeing that both his teammates are dead, Hikiri is filled with rage and transforms himself into an eerie chainsaw man and declares that he will do anything to achieve his purpose. But suddenly Yu attacks her, sending him gliding across the ground. And everyone realizes that Yu has made a huge bundle of the entire building in her hairpin, and then she directs Hyoma to leave because he is injured, and he agrees, and soon she throws the hairpin at Hikiri. But the stubborn Hyoma is not leaving. He jumps in the air and cuts Hikiri in half. Soon Yu comes towards her and yells at him for not following her orders, and they both start bickering again. Yu bandages Hyoma's bleeding leg, and Hyoma asks Tsubaki if she too is after the paper umbrella spirit, and she agrees. And when he asks if her quest is also to take revenge for his siblings, she replies that Hyoma's older brother and sister took care of her when she was very young and went to their place to learn to fight, and seeing them use their exceptional skills smoothly was no less than a beautiful poetry in motion for her. They both were prodigies in 10-vessel sparring, and Tsubaki's dad asked her to watch them closely and learn in the process. Tsubaki had never met someone who made her heart sing like they did, so she is after the paper umbrella spirit to take revenge for stealing these two people from her life, and it's the first Tsukumo game that she is determined to beat with her own hands, and if Hyoma also feels the same, then they can work together in defeating it. She offers to use the unparalleled and quality information of Kyoto Senome, and finally she asks Hyoma to join her instead of the Nagatsuki household. Yu, however, is a bit concerned about this appealing invitation because Tsubaki is a prodigy child who learned the master art of 10-vessel sparring when she was just 8 years old, and at that age she was outdoing even the most experienced Senone, and on top of that her motivation for hunting the paper umbrella and her feelings towards his siblings is completely different from Hyoma's. It's just to entertain herself, and she has inherited the Katamori philosophy of using whatever they can to achieve their goal. After some time, Hyoma speaks up, and Yu assumes that he will surely accept the appealing offer, but Hugh says that he wants to pursue the paper umbrella monster with all his heart and take revenge, but for now he has other commitments, and he can't back away from them, so he can't accept the offer. While returning home, Yu asks Hyoma why he didn't take the offer. He replies that he will destroy the paper umbrella himself, because that is what he pledged when his brother and sister sacrificed their lives while saving him, but he has also pledged to become strong and capable so he can stop the next Tsukumogami-induced tragedy, and for that he needs to complete his training in the Nagatsuki household, and he also can't leave Boten alone. As soon as they enter the mansion, Boten lashes out at him for coming back injured again. A little later, Hori calls everyone to her office and declares that on the occasion of Boten starting her 3rd year at university and Hyoma starting his 3rd month in the Nagatsuki household, they will host a hot pot party tonight, and for that she will assign everyone shopping roles. Hori has to buy meat herself. Yu will buy eggs, side dishes, Nagi is given the alcohol duty, Kushij has to stay in the mansion to supervise, and finally Boten and Hyoma will find the big self-heating pot that is somewhere in the house, and then she calls Boten and asks her to make the best use of her time alone with Hyoma and hands her a piece of paper to follow the step because she is a clueless and hopeless romantic. Soon they are out of Hori's office looking for the pot, and Hume declares that he will go out to look for it in the warehouse. Meanwhile, Hori has bought beef and she is out to have some tea while Yu is grumbling about leaving Boten and Hyoma alone. And just like that, everyone is carrying out their jobs smoothly. But for Naji, it's a tough job to get alcohol from an arrogant lady who challenges him to fight with her to get alcohol, but they don't have to use swords but drink a whole container of alcohol, and Naji accepts the offer without delay. On the other hand, Hyoma and Boten are busy finding the pot in the warehouse, but Boten keeps thinking about the arranged marriage offer, and mistakenly she drops the list of steps that Hori wrote for her to follow and get close to Hyoma, and he picks it and starts reading it. Boten is flustered and replies that it's just a silly list that Hori gave her to take things forwards with Hyoma, and it was kind of forced on her. And Hyoma, being a clueless jerk, again tries to comfort Boten by saying that he is not worried about it, but Boten can see that he is blushing, and suddenly he starts using old Japanese accent, and Boten is reminded when Suzuri told him when Hyoma gets flustered, he sometimes slips into old-timey speech, and Boten smiles to herself. She runs towards Hyoma to get a closer look at his face, but he keeps moving her and let her hide from her, and suddenly Tan falls on him, and they both are blushing heavily. An angry Yu, who saw everything, binds Hyoma in her hairpin and asks Botan if she has found the post, and she replies that she hasn't yet, and it turns out that the pot was lent to a neighbor for the festival and Hori forgot to bring it back. Soon everyone returns home with all the ingredients and they all get ready to start cooking, and after some time everyone sits down to enjoy food and drinks. They are having a good time when Hyoma realizes that Botan is too drunk, so he takes her out to get some water and sober her up. After sobering up a bit, she apologizes to Hyoma for not behaving so well before, but he dismisses her, saying that it's just a silly trick Hori played on them. Seeing Hori, he is reminded of her own sister who used to integrate him and advised him about love. Then he confesses that he has never seen a more perfect family than the Nagatsuki Tsukumogamis, and he is glad that Botan is surrounded by a beautiful family. The next day, Botan takes Hyoma to a shop to get some new clothes for him to wear when he will start working with the Kyoto Seino. It turns out that the Seinoms only allow special kinds of uniforms with expensive tags, and they had also sent a catalog to Hyoma to follow the dress code, and Hyoma is bewildered after seeing so many options because for him fabric and sizes are only choices. When he saw the catalog before, Suzuri pointed out that after choosing a uniform, he would have to undergo a compatibility test, and he is worried about the test. When they open the door of the shop, surprisingly, they are greeted by Tsubaki again, who hugs Hyoma and makes Botan a bit jealous, but soon he pushes her away to avoid causing any misunderstanding. Tsubaki introduces herself to Botan and takes them to the second floor where they can check out the best fabric for Hyoma's uniform, and when a worried Hyoma asks her about the compatibility test, she reassures him that it is not very hard, but it also depends on who is undertaking it. As soon as the gate of the second floor room opens, a fabric envelope Botan, and suddenly a man named Hada, who is the spirit of the spinning wheel, apologizes, saying that the fabric they make has some special qualities and they've got a life of their own because the nature of the Tsukumogame rubs on the fabric. He takes them inside the shop and starts explaining that the cloth itself is not Tsukumogame, but it just copies a bit of the transformative properties of the Tsukumogame. He flaunts that the cloth can adjust its endurance and flexibility in accordance to the wearer's will. That means is a living cloth, and Hyoma would have to build a relationship with it, or it will be uncooperative and will not follow his orders while he in the middle of a fight, and that might be troublesome. Botan looks at Hyoma and he seems to be hypnotized, repeating again and again that he can't have a Tsukumogame wrapped all over his body, and then he calms himself down in a weird way. He goes on to slap himself with both his hands to bring himself back to his senses, and then he calmly says that it's the part of his training, and since this cloth will reduce his chances of getting injured, and that will allow Botan to stay at peace and not get worried about him all the time. He is ready to make a relationship with the cloth he is going to wear, and Hada says that it is going to be a bit difficult for Hyoma. Botan asks why the cloth clung onto her so easily before, to which Hada smiles and says that she is an exception, and Tsubaki agrees, saying that Botan is capable of building some very long-lasting relationships, but Hyoma would have to forge a master-servant relationship with the fabric, and Botan is a bit uncertain, because she doesn't like the sound of master-servant and wonders if Hyoma will find a different method that will suit him. Hyoma warms up and cracks a few joints and calls the fabric to fight with it, but the fabric doesn't understand spoken words. However, it can sense feelings, so it transforms itself into a huge punch and slams onto Hyoma, but he tries to restrain it as much as possible, and then uses his fist to punch and sends it flying across the room, and then he dramatically exclaims that he will entrust the fabric with his life, and he will give it a chance to be his armor and become a source of pride and happiness for him, and in turn, he swears to wear it well and wear it out until the end and allow it to fulfill the purpose for which it's born. He asks the fabric for coordination in order to make a relationship that is of real comrades. Soon, Hada informs them that the cloth seems to be very pleased with Hyoma right now, so it will be a good comrade to Hyoma. A little later, Hyoma comes out of the shop with a new uniform, and Botan asks why it's still the same like his old clothes. He replies that it has been uniquely transformed to match his outfit's colors and form. Botan asks if Hyoma is pleased with what he did today. He replies that he really is surprised about how he talked to his Tsukumogame fabric without much difficulty and reached an agreement with it, and quite frankly, he had never thought that he would be capable of doing this in his life, and perhaps he is becoming the Seinom that High Grandfather spoke of. Botan agrees with him and enthusiastically says that he is heading towards a good direction. Then Hyoma looks at Botan, and he can sense that she seems a bit tired and asks if she is feeling unwell. She replies that earlier she was with Tsubaki for some time while he was getting his clothes made, and she pointed out to her hair clip with a big dipper on it, saying that it really suits her and it looks cute. And then she abruptly drops on her that she had once made a move on Hyoma because he is very cute, but he rejected her. But she doesn't plan to back down so soon and will still continue to follow Hyoma around. Later, Tsubaki informs his father that Hyoma was able to wear the fabric well, and she also got a chance to meet the infamous Boten. Both Hyoma and Boten have a good relationship, and she opens up to him very well. Hearing this, Kawamori thinks that it's a bit weird because when he first met Boten, she was a lonely child who was incapable of opening up to anyone. The next day, Hyoma helps Boten in university to set up the board for her college society called Hakunin Issue Society, something that she had learnt while she was young with Hori. And now she has to distribute the flyers so the new recruits can also join the club. Soon her friends join her and they thank Hyoma, and then tease him by saying that they assume that he is a hooligan with some underworld connections. Before they can make fun of him further, Boten drags him out with her and tells him that she has got an extra shift to show important stuff to the new recruits this afternoon. While they are talking, suddenly one of Boten's friends runs towards her and tries to drag her along to get some work done, and Boten bids Hyoma goodbye while she's being dragged away. Meanwhile, Suzuri is flirting with the girls in the college and Naji asks him to focus on his work, and Naji informs him that he has got a training post at the swordsmanship club at Boten's college, and Suzuri says that they should go back home because they can't risk standing out too much. Suddenly, they notice Kei's comrade girl on top of the university building who targets her powers towards Hyoma and takes him to the Great Kai. Hyoma looks around and notices that the people around him have disappeared, which means he is trapped in a barrier and he has no idea who Kai is, but he can't leave any Tsukumogami who targets humans, so he gets ready to fight, and Kai throws a couple of swords towards Hyoma, but he blocks them. Hyoma notices that Kai has a Japanese armor, swords, and warrior weapons, and realizes that he is an exception because Tsukumogamis take full control of their vessel. However, Kai has taken control of a full set of items, and soon he realizes that he is a monster, the greatest of the three, called Kai, a suit of armor. Kai goes on to beat Hyoma and gaslights him, saying that with this energy and strength he can't defeat the paper umbrella monster at any cost. Hyoma is furious when he hears the name of his ultimate enemy and dangerously asks Kai if he knows about that menacing monster and where he is right now, but Kai keeps on dodging his question. Angry and desperate, Hyoma jumps at Kai and delivers a few punches at him, but Kai is too strong to be handled alone. Soon Naji and Suzuri enter the barrier, and Nagi wastes no time in attacking Kai with his sword, but he blocks it, and Itsuki, the comrade girl of Kai, tells him that they don't have much time left, and soon Kai is caught in golden chains. It turns out that whenever Itsuki loses her strength, Kai can no longer act because he is caught in the barrier created by her. On the other hand, Boten enters her class and find out that her club members are planning to recruit some handsome members for the club, but Boten is least interested in those kinds of talks, and she asks them to tidy up the room already, and finally, after getting everything done, she locks the door of the club room, and while leaving the room, she wonders why people are more interested in things like romance and love while all she can think of them is that they are dangerous feelings. Meanwhile, the barrier created by Kai is broken, and he tells the boys that he just came here to meet Hyoma, and he also got permission to do so, but Naji accuses him for going too far to beat Hyoma up, and he replies that he just wanted to have some fun and meant no real harm to anyone, besides Naji and Suzuri, who attacked Itsuki to get to him, so they are even now, but Nagi said they didn't exactly attack her because she is too weak to be fought with. While they all are busy, Hyoma just wants to know about the paper umbrella monster and asks Kai about it, but he says that he is too weak to get to know about that formidable monster. He says that there was a time when he got a chance to meet his siblings and Hyoma is still weaker than them. And if they were slain by the paper umbrella at that time, Hyoma doesn't stand a chance against it. He then asks why doesn't Hyoma use his own weapon, and he just keeps using the ritual tool that his siblings gave him and seems like he is obsessed with them. And seeing that things might escalate, Nagi says that Kai should head home now, but Kai accuses Naji and the Nagasukis being far worse than him because they have deliberately tried to make Boten and Hyoma close to each other, and that according to him is a true act of cruelty. None of them know that Boten is secretly listening to them from behind the building. Kai continues saying that as long as Hyoma stays close to Boten, he will keep attempting to protect her and consider it his duty, but what's funny is the fact that the reason the paper monster that killed his siblings was activated was because of Boten, and of course she doesn't need anybody protecting her anyways because she is incapable of trusting anyone enough to allow that. Naji yells at Kai and asks him to stop insulting their mistress with his baseless talks and rumors, otherwise they will not hesitate to crush him. Soon Kai gets an electric shock again, signaling that he has done enough mischief and he must go back to his prison, and before leaving, Itsuki apologizes to everyone on Kei's behalf, and soon they both disappear. Hyoma asks Naji and Suzuri to allow him to go somewhere to cool off his mind and make sense of things, and Suzuri replies that he can, but he must make sure to not overthink and return as soon as possible. When Hyoma walks away, Nagi says that he might have really taken the words of Kai seriously, and Suzuri agrees, saying that they can't ask him to not shake off his feelings about his siblings. It will always be there, so it's better to let him off for some time. And moreover, what Kai said has been there on people's mouths in the form of rumors that Boten is behind the paper umbrella incident. But for now, it's just a dozen of theories that are making round here and there, but they can't just ignore them. On the other hand, Boten has heard everything that Kai said. It's been 4 days and Hyoma hasn't returned to the Nagatsuki mansion, and everyone is furious at Kai for stirring the pot and making things awkward. Yu assures Kagami that Hyoma promised to return home and he will eventually do that, but she is concerned about Boten, who is very low these days. Boten is worried about Hyoma, and she finally resolves to find out if she is the one who was the cause of Hyoma's sibling's death. She goes to Katamori and greets him, and the old man informs him that this is their second meeting because he met her when she was just a little girl. Tsubaki asks her to take a seat, and Katamori is already informed that Boten wishes to know how she's connected with the paper umbrella incident. After some time, Boten gets ready to leave, and before that she tells Katamori about the incident with Kai and how Hyoma has left home after that, and suddenly Hyoma enters the room and Katamori informs Boten that he has been training with them for the last 4 days, and since then he is staying with them. He recalls how an angry Hyoma approached him and asked him to let him undertake training with the Seinom Kyoto branch in order to beat the paper monster one day, and he also wants to show Kai that he is powerful enough to face the formidable monster who killed his siblings. Kutamori asks Hyoma to go back to the Nagatsuki household and take a leave for tomorrow because the 10-vessel sparring he just completed is their household's last and final training, and they can't provide him with any upgraded training. So he wants him to leave the household because he has been a huge nuisance and they can't feed and clothe Hai anymore. Boten and Hyoma are on their way to the Nagatsuki household, and Boten gives him his scarf. Hyoma praises her for being so brave and going to the Katamori household to get to know the truth, and Boten gives him a side-eye, saying that he was the one who left abruptly without saying anything, making her worry that he doesn't want to live in their house anymore because of what Kai said. But she understands his situation because his siblings matter a lot to him. Hyoma replies that Kei's claims seem to be useless to him, and the idea of Boten being responsible for the paper umbrella is transparently false claim. But what hurts him is the fact that he is too weak to face the paper umbrella monster, so he must train hard, so the next time he comes across Kai, he will force the truth about paper umbrella out from his mouth. Boten observes him for a moment and then compliments him for being so brave, because once he sets his eyes on something, he never lets go of it until the end, so he must keep trusting himself and not give up until he has achieved his objective. Then Boten confesses that Kai said another truth about her not being able to trust others, and that's because while she was very young, she was once kidnapped. When her parents died, a whole parade of different relatives offered to take her in, and there once was a man with kind eyes, and he was her distant relative, and another relative was her father's younger sister who had a sour expression, and it was little after 3 years when she was allowed to go out, but she had already seen a lot of human and other Tsukumogamis who had their eyes on her. So the Tsukumogamis of the Nagatsuki household had been keeping their eyes on her to guard her, but because they were her first blood relatives, she wanted them to take care of her and decided to trust their kindness. But the one who kidnapped her was the woman, because one day the man with the kind eyes, whom Boten trusted, was making a deal to sell her off. But her father's sister named Setsuki sped off with the car that had Boten in it and said that she won't let anyone use her. And that was when Boten realized that the woman with the sour expression was someone who had to be trusted and not the man. She took her to an abandoned house far from the countryside and asked her to live with her, and they will find happiness together. While the Tsukumogamis of the Nagatsuki household were out there searching for her, she was living a quiet and peaceful life with Satsuki, who was like a mother she had always dreamt of. But those peaceful days came to an abrupt end when, while they both were escaping the evil man who wanted to sell Boten, they crashed their car and Satsuki died, and the evil man tried to take her away. But she doesn't remember anything after that and found herself with her Tsukumogami family again, and ever since then she has been afraid of being betrayed by those she cared and have seen people die while protecting her. All this makes her unspeakably afraid of trusting anyone, even though she has learnt to confidently interact with humans and spirits, but she can't seem to do more than that and is incapable of loving someone. Hyoma thinks for a while and then asks Boten if she can trust him because he will never think of manipulating her. And then he goes on to swear to Boten that he will never break her trust, and he will never die, and he will always keep him safe, and then he smiles. Boten has tears in her eyes as she looks at Hyoma, and tells him that it's the first time she has ever seen him smile, and he looks very kind when he smiles, and then they walk together to return to the mansion.